YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back on the first official day of NFL free agency, even though it sort of started on Monday. But here we are, a whole new wave of news and rumors flying in, and trades will go down. We haven't really seen any big trades. There's been some somewhat big trades, and we graded those on our Instagram. So you see it on your screen. Go to our Instagram to see the Michael Brockers and Rodney Hudson trade grades. Big trades we'll grade here. We're grading every single free agency signing right here. There's about 6 videos. I'll pin a link of the playlist of that in the comments of this video. So some big rumors with some big names floating around here. That's what we're going to discuss in this video. Deshaun Watson, Kyle Fuller, Gardner Minshew, Marcus Mariota, and then we'll talk about J.C. Jackson. Not really a trade rumor, but interesting. Talk about those guys and potential landing spots, what's going on. So please subscribe to get all of that NFL action. Follow our Twitter for breaking news and constant live NFL talk. Follow the Instagram for some trade grades. Check out walkthemock.com. Very best NFL draft simulator. We use that for our member mock drafts. Sign up, use code GOATHOUSE, link, pin in the comments for anything that you need. Here's our Twitter. Just constantly talking news, just constantly breaking right now. We're talking about it, breaking it all down, and giving you my thoughts. So check it out. Talk about Deshaun Watson. I put some teams up on the board here. You know what? We're gonna pull a maneuver. There we go. Right on Deshaun Watson there. Didn't want to cover up the Patriots. Patriots a little bit of a long shot because they did bring back Cam Newton, but that doesn't mean they're set. But I put some teams up here that I think he can land, and it's just the same teams that we've been talking about for a long time. But now it's come out that the Texans actually could trade him. They haven't. It's been a while since they said they wouldn't trade him. So it's definitely possible they bring in Tyrod Taylor. We talked about that. We graded that. They brought him in. That's a high end backup quarterback. That's almost like that quarterback you bring in if you're about to draft a quarterback, because the draft is somewhat unpredictable. But it just feels like that. But then they would have to gain a pick. But that would mean maybe trading Deshaun Watson. From the start, I was one of the people saying they're not going to trade him. Then it kind of came out afterward that they're not going to trade him. But now I'm starting to open up a little bit. The idea they could trade him. Yeah, I've been saying for some time, and we know the Panthers are in the mix, and that's kind of the rumors, the news that came out today. At the Panthers, their options in their mind right now are Deshaun Watson, and then it's kind of Teddy Bridgewater. That's why they haven't traded Teddy Bridgewater yet. That's why they're hanging on to him, because if we can't get Deshaun Watson, we'll go with Teddy Bridgewater. We're not going to force a draft pick. I'm not going to say 0% chance they pass on a draft pick, but it kind of feels that way. Obviously, I don't like any of the guys that are starting to fly off the board in terms of free agency. But we've known since day one the Panthers are for sure in. And what I've been saying, if the Jets and the Dolphins get in there, the other teams are most likely in trouble because those teams have the most to offer. Now, I'm almost ready to take the Dolphins off the board first here. It really feels like they're invested in Tua Tagovailoa, and they did sign Jacoby Brissett. So I think it's probably the most long shot, actually, out of the teams on the list. So I would say probably remove the Miami Dolphins. If the Jets get involved, they have the second pick to offer. They also have a collection of other picks over the next couple of years here, this year and next year. So they would kind of just trump everyone else's offer. So that is why, everyone else needs to hope the Jets aren't involved. But really, and then the Panthers probably have the next most to offer. So everyone else pretty much needs to hope that the Panthers aren't involved, or they lowball the Texans, that is. But we know the Panthers are involved, and we know they're not going to lowball them. So I'm almost calling, some of these, the Broncos are right there in terms of what they can offer. A lot of these other teams have very little shot just because we know the Panthers are involved, and we know they have more to offer, a better pick to offer. So it's definitely interesting. If I had to predict right now, I'd say the Panthers are probably the front runner. Give me a lot in terms of compensation there. If the Jets get involved, Panthers are pretty much, and everyone else pretty much in trouble. But the Jets, they might be locked into Zach Wilson, and I don't really blame them for that. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, the Panthers are locked into Watson, and it's the chances of him getting traded increased a little bit. They're still not high, but they increase. Yeah, I threw the Raiders in here because the Raiders are pretty unpredictable what they're doing. John Gruden, Mike Mayock, so maybe they involve Derek Carr. It feels like, all right, Derek Carr's going to get traded, but then we're like, okay, those are probably those silly rumors that come out every year. And then the Raiders say they're invested, they're locked into Derek Carr. It really wouldn't surprise me if we woke up one day and they traded him, because it's the Raiders. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think they like Derek Carr. I just threw him up here because it's somewhat of a possibility, very small. Next up, Kyle Fuller was brought up earlier today that he's been involved in trade discussions. The Bears would actually like to move on from him because he's got a big cap hit. The Bears, if they trade him, they would clear $11 million in cap space. So not the full 20. They would clear the 11. Still a good amount. And the team taking him in, it would be a $14 million cap hit. So pretty pricey. But Kyle Fuller's a good corner. Felt like he's gotten better too. Last couple of years. And you see William Jackson, Shaq Griffin getting around that price point. Fuller more established, and I don't think he's going to decline anytime soon. So, it's a big price, but it's the right price, really. Curious to what the Bears are doing. What are they clearing that space for? They were in on Trent Williams, so I wonder if this is kind of delayed news, like they were ready to trade him, and in case they got Trent Williams, so maybe it's kind of off the table now because Trent Williams can be pretty pricey, and they were in on that. So, wondering, I hope for the Bears' sake, this if they trade Kyle Fuller so they can pay Allen Robinson and that's it, like that's going to be bad. That's going to be the pay a receiver. Allen Robinson's great, but to get rid of your best corner, really good corner, that's going to be really good for a few years. It felt like, again, he looked like almost on a bust level early on, and it's because corners take a while to develop. People would kind of jump on labels early on, and now he's looking great. So last 3 years is really when he got good. So that looks good for going forward as too. Of course, not for like 10 more years, but you get my point. It just wouldn't make sense. You kind of make yourself worse, to just pay a receiver, especially in a historic draft class. That wouldn't make sense. Who knows what the Bears are up to, so I'm very curious. I threw some teams up here that I think are fits, and then a couple other teams I think that could get involved. But the Chargers, fantastic fit in Brandon Staley's defense. They got, Chris Harris Jr., and they re-signed Michael Davis to a little more money than we thought. That doesn't necessarily mean they're out in corner. Both those guys can play slot. They could be looking for an outside corner. I think he fits that system. They're going to run a lot of cover 4. I think Kyle Fuller fits that scheme very well. The Broncos, Vic Fangio's there. He coached, maybe kind of boosted Kyle Fuller's play. Maybe he was responsible for that, right before he left there. So he's familiar with Kyle Fuller. I think he can fit his defense, obviously. So that's something to look out for. They did sign Ronald Darby, but could they add Kyle Fuller? Then the cornerback position is set, and they don't really have to overdraft. I'm not a fan of drafting it, especially in this class. We got to play it by class, but I wouldn't want them to draft a corner in the top 10. It wouldn't be at the end of the world. But that's just me. That's if I was GM, I would not be taking a corner in the top 10 here this year. The guys that are late first, early second are just as good of the guys you got to use a top 10 pick on. And corners take a while, even the top ones. Sometimes they struggle really, quite a bit early on. So maybe trading for a guy like this. I really like the Browns to fit too. They ran a bit at cover 4 last year. Or cover 2, cover 2, excuse me, which the Bears ran with Kyle Fuller quite a bit, where he kind of thrived in my opinion. So if the Browns want to keep some of the similar schemes, they're not just running one scheme, but that kind of fits Kyle Fuller. And the Colts fit too, because the Colts ran an insane amount of cover 2, and then I thought he thrived when he ran cover 2 with the Bears. So that makes sense to me in terms of those fits. Those are the 4 best fits in my opinion. The Colts. They don't really. I don't know if they should, because they run so much cover 2, where it's like your corner just covers the flat. Like I can go cover the flat for them. Exaggeration, but my point is it's not the hardest job covering the flat. So that much. So maybe they want to change the scheme up a little bit. Maybe they don't want to run as much, so then they would go for a guy like Kyle Fuller. But if they're going to run that much again, you really shouldn't be paying a corner that much, even though it's a great fit and he'd be an upgrade. So that's kind of one that's it's a great fit, but it's not as much. I know Vic Fangio coached him, so it's a fantastic fit. I'd say the Chargers, honestly, is probably the best fit. He'd play the best probably there, but they invested some money in the cornerback position. The Broncos did too. So maybe I'm leaning towards Browns as the time. Again, a good fit. Browns is maybe the top landing spot, top fit being the Chargers, and then probably the Broncos, but the Browns and the Colts not far off at all, really close. But we'll see. I think the Jets in here, because I think they desperately need a corner. They have the money, and I think that Salah can make it work with Kyle Fuller. I think he could fit. He fits the other ones a little more, but I think he can fit, and they'd be definitely willing to do this, in my opinion. In the Raiders, looking for a veteran corner. more likely to go for a free agent veteran corner. And the Cardinals are kind of getting desperate. They just traded for Ronnie Hudson, though, so I don't think they'll be able to afford Kyle Fuller at this point. So maybe remove the Cardinals at this point, but for him. But those were interesting. Be weird, interesting to see what kind of pick the Bears would get back. I think there's some value here. I would much rather – I don't think they get a second-round pick, but that's probably where I put the value at. Maybe a second even plus, but I don't know if they get that. If they're pushing him, they're trying to clear that money. He is pretty pricey, but look at what those corners that aren't at the talent level of him got. So they should get a second, but I don't know if they would. A third and then plus something. We will see. We'll see if Allen Robinson, nothing came out about him. We'll see if he is a tag and trade. Very, very interesting. But like I mentioned, I wondered if there was something on the table or talks just in case they got Trent Williams, because they were going to have to clear around that amount of space. So that would make sense too. So maybe this isn't a thing anymore. We'll see. J.C. Jackson was actually tendered by the Patriots. And making sure there's no big news coming out. So what that means, trying to explain the tender situation to people on Twitter, the best way to sum it up here is free agent. He's a free agent. There's a load of free agents across the NFL. Most of them, 90-something% of them are unrestricted free agents. That means once free agency starts, they could sign with anybody. Restricted free agents, if the team that has a restricted free agent, so the Patriots with J.C. Jackson, they have the opportunity to place what is called a tender on the player because he's restricted. They have until the league start year, so that's today, and they did it. So it's Wednesday at 4 p.m. was when it all started, and they did it. You have until then to place the tender. If they don't place tender, he's unrestricted, could sign anywhere in that. That's really what it is. So they place it, and it costs to place a tender. So that's kind of the downside. It takes a cap hit. So they placed a tender on him, a second-round pick. Some people expected a first-round pick, and when you do that, you stick this tender on him, and in this case, the Patriots did put a second round on him, so we'll use that as the example because that is the case. If a team can, now he's a free agent with the tender on him. Team goes and signs him. We'll use the Broncos for an example. First team listed. They put in an offer. They're agreeing to sign J.C. Jackson. The Patriots take a look at that offer. If they want to match that offer, they do that, and they get J.C. Jackson back. End of story. If they don't want to match the offer, the Broncos get him for that contract, and the Broncos give the Patriots a second-round pick. So it almost feels like a trade, even though it's not. And what I think, I'm kind of feeling the Patriots want somebody to give them that second-round pick. If they lose him through free agency, everyone knows how the compensatory pick system works, maybe not everybody, but you lose guys in free agency, you have a chance to get a compensatory pick the next year. So the Patriots, if they would have lost him in free agency in general, unrestricted wise, they would have got a third-round pick next year's draft, for him. But so they put the second-round tender on him. So if somebody signs him, they get a second-round tender. If they put a first-round tender on him, he was probably back. Nobody was going to sign him for that, so he was probably back by default, because nobody was going to give a first-round pick for him. So the Patriots, if they really wanted him back, they would have done that because they had the cap space to do that. It's only like $1 million extra, like $4.5 million in that range to do that. So I kind of feel like they want a second-round pick. They're trying to pull a second-round pick from this guy. In worst case, they get him back. They get him back for the price of that second-round tender. So that's what I feel. I didn't list too many teams here because which teams do I kind of listed the teams that I think fit and which combined with the teams that I think should consider this. And there's not a lot of teams that would consider this because you have to give him a pretty big contract. You'll probably get in the it's crazy. He might accept if he feels like the Patriots really don't want him. They're trying to pull that second round pick. He may accept a little cheaper. So anywhere in the 11 to 14 million range, I guess pretty big range. That'd be pretty interesting to see what happens here. But a team would have to offer that. Still a lot of money, even if it's bottom line range, and they would have to give the second round pick. The Broncos, I'd be okay with it. Rather than drafting a corner, 9th overall, you get this guy who's going to be better than that corner, year one. Maybe not in the future, but he's still a young corner with tremendous upside. He's getting better. He's a playmaker. When the Broncos, with their front seven, with that pass rush, he can be a playmaker. He can get his hands on the ball. He can change the game. He's also a fit. The Broncos and the Patriots ran the same coverage schemes. This is a tremendous fit here. So that would make sense, spend that 9th overall pick on something a little more valuable, position-wise and prospect-wise. I think a little more valuable than in the corner position and that actual cornerback player. I would like this for the Broncos, unless they crazy overpaid him or something. I would like this. Cardinals, a tremendous fit. They need a corner really bad, and a lot of the same coverage schemes, concepts the Patriots ran, the Cardinals ran, so he fits. They did trade for Rodney Hudson. They took a pretty giant cap hit from that. They're going to work on a restructure to clear some space. I'm confident they'll do that. They still might not have enough space, though. They great fit. They would love to do this. I think it became a little less likely. Jets, and now this is interesting. People may say, well, the Patriots aren't going to trade. Trade's the key word because it's not the case, to a division rival, and it's not a trade. The Patriots, I think, want a second-round pick. So if the Jets are the team that made the offer and it's up to the Patriots to match, if they don't really want him, they want a second-round pick. That was the goal the whole time. They're not going to match just so the Jets can't have him. So I think the Jets, even though they're in the division, I definitely think it's a possibility. I think he'd be a playmaker in Robert Saleh's scheme back there. A little more of a concept, zone coverage concept, scheme fit for the Broncos, Cardinals, and the Jets, but not too far off there. Broncos makes a lot of sense. And, of course, we could talk about other teams. There's kind of mystery teams. Titans, Packers, a couple of them. And what I mean by that is we don't know for sure what kind of concepts they're going to run. The Packers switched defensive coordinators. So we really don't know. I'm not really 100% confident what kind of coverages they'll run mainly. And the Titans kept defensive coordinator, but I think they're trying to switch it up a little bit. Signing Janoris Jenkins kind of tells me a little more man coverage, maybe a little two under man. And J.C. Jackson, he would fit that. He would fit that with Janoris Jenkins, but so maybe chance. I don't think it's as likely as some of the other teams. Maybe nobody wants to give up the second round pick. Maybe that's what it is. It is a little risky because he's kind of one of those guys, not exactly, but either gets beat or gets that big time interception. It's not quite like that. He's not getting beat 50% of the time. Well, he doesn't get interceptions 50% of the time. So it's not quite like that bad. That would be really bad. But it is a little risky. And some guys, thrive a little more in the Patriots scheme. But again, I think he would have some, especially in the Broncos scheme, I think you'd have some success. I wasn't a fan of the Darby pickup for them. This would be something. So we'll see what happens here. You usually don't see, rarely, you see teams give up that tender pick and sign a guy. It doesn't happen too often. I think there's a shot here. And I think the Patriots it's kind of bait, but usually bait's like somebody takes it and they're kind of the idiot for taking the bait. It's really not the case. So I don't really know how to explain it, how to summarize it that much, but I feel strongly about that. That's what the Patriots want. If they get him back, it's kind of a win-win situation in my opinion. So I kind of like what the Patriots throwing out there. I think this kind of removes Gilmore from the conversations. I don't know if he was ever involved in trade talks. I think it was kind of just speculation, rumors. But if they, want somebody to take J.C. Jackson, why would they want to move on from Gilmore as well? So that's interesting. Maybe Mills is playing corner. That's interesting too. Gilmore and Jalen Mills at corner. Mills did play corner in the past. That's actually a strong possibility. I think they want the second round pick. I think they really want it. So we'll see if somebody does it. It could work out for some teams. I won't like it for a whole lot of teams. So it's definitely interesting stuff there with him. So I can't wait to see what happens. Marcus Mariota, there's really nothing new floating around on him. I just really want to talk about him because he's been talked about in the past a lot. I've been talking about this for the last couple weeks. The Raiders better be careful with the leverage because and that's kind of coming up again. They could easily blow it with Marcus Mariota, and we'll see what happens. I feel like they kind of are because they had a bunch of trade offers about 2-3 weeks ago, and they weren't really accepting them, and teams were saying that they're asking for too much, and that made sense. I talked about it at the time. That made sense because the Raiders want to get their best pick, makes teams come back to them like, all right, we'll give you that pick. Could drive up the price, but if you wait too long, teams are going to start to get their quarterback, and they're not going to need Marcus Mariota, and that's exactly what's happening. The too long stage is here, and Bears are signing Andy Dalton. All these guys. Washington, I thought he would go to Washington. Washington got Fitzpatrick. If he didn't go to Washington, I like the Patriots. Patriots got Cam Newton. It could still make it happen. That's why he's up here. But a lot of these teams finding their quarterback, and the teams that aren't, the Panthers are kind of locked in on Deshaun Watson. I don't feel like this is still possible for them. I just don't feel like they're focused on this at all, at all right now. But it's possible still. But the teams that didn't, get signed the quarterback in free agency, get the guy they wanted, they're probably targeting the draft or a guy like Deshaun Watson for the Panthers' sake. So there's very limited teams that would trade for Mariota right now. The Broncos could do it. Could do another guy we're going to talk about, Herb Trubisky. The 49ers, they could do that. Maybe Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's name hasn't popped up at all, so I wonder what's going on there. Could the Jets possibly want to keep him, not draft quarterback too? I'm getting scared for them. Trubisky linked to the Niners as well. The Patriots got Cam Newton, so it's unlikely, but it's kind of, it's better. I think it's unlikely. Do the Raiders want to keep a quarterback with $11 million cap hit as your backup? I think they planned to move on from him at this time, but you got to get something because you could have got something. So interesting situation here. Raiders, hopefully they didn't blow it for themselves. Gardner Minshew's name come up. Not really a surprise, but now it's coming up. He's involved in trade talks. I think teams are calling him. So it's really the same teams here. He probably would go. There could be a lot of other teams I don't have listed here they can go to. A team just looking to trade for a backup, like a high profile, a pretty solid backup with upside. But I kind of put the teams here where he has a chance to start because those teams might be able to offer a little more because they're, offering for a potential starter. I'm kind of leaning Broncos. I kind of like the Broncos for him as a fit. Battle with Drew Lock a little bit. Could see him in that Shanahan scheme. I'm kind of, mainly those two teams. If the Panthers cannot get Deshaun Watson, maybe they have him come compete with Teddy Bridgewater. But I'm kind of leaning Broncos as maybe the team that's calling the most interested at this time. So that's something to keep an eye on. I should have mentioned with Mariota, I thought they could have got a fourth rounder out of from before. That probably went down now. Fifth would be good at this point probably, even though they still kind of blew it. Gardner Minshew, teams are probably offering like a sixth. Well, I don't know if the Jaguars would be, they're not in a hurry to get rid of him, so there's, they don't need to get rid of him either. He could back up Trevor Lawrence if that's the guy. So they may wait for that fifth round pick offer, possibly. That'd be fantastic for them. But they're not desperate for the picks either because they got plenty. So there's no rush with that one. I don't know if leverage will really go away from that one. So it's definitely something to monitor. But yeah, that's going to do it. So some big names, not too many of them popped up so far, but more of this will come out and we'll have you covered. We have you covered instantly on this stuff on Twitter as it happens, as it breaks. So follow our Twitter at GoDustNFL. There's a link pinned in the comments. Follow our Instagram for some trade grades. And then we have every free agency signing grade on this channel. A bunch of them already up. So check it out. Subscribe, smash that like button, turn notifications on so you don't miss a thing. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.